Hey, folks, this is the True American Podcast, and I'm your host. Have with us someone who I would definitely characterize as a true American, as Mr. Tony Wheatley. He's the founder of Constitutional Kentucky. That's a nonprofit organization. They're just basically just passionately focused on educating folks in this Commonwealth about the Kentucky Constitution. And we just received some good news that they're going to be having some sort of partnership with Turning Point USA, and I know that is going to be fantastic. Now, folks, before we get into my conversation with Mr. Wheatley today, I need to make it perfectly clear. He is speaking as a private individual. His opinions are his opinions. They're not the official opinions of Constitutional Kentucky. I want to make that perfectly clear. He's speaking as an individual right now. He's not being a spokesperson for Constitutional Kentucky. But it is important for us to know what someone like Tony Wheatley thinks about whatever the issue might be in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, because if he's just that kind of guy. He's a brilliant individual, got a lot of information. I have a deep respect for him. Brother, thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Now, brother, I think it was like a few months ago. Charles Booker, as you know, was running against the incumbent, Senator Rand Paul. Charles Booker, some people may not know, but he's an up-and-coming politician within the Democratic Party. He's liberal. I would say part of the left-wing part of the Democratic Party. Charismatic young black man. I believe he even has a law degree from the University of Louisville. And he did a commercial several months ago. To this day, I'm astounded at. As you know, he had a noose around his neck. And he started talking about hatred, race hatred in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and how far black folk have come in the Commonwealth and Kentucky, and trying to connect Senator Rand Paul to race hatred, etc. And then at the end, he made what I found a startling comment about. He said 2 or 3 of his uncles were lynched. I just want to start off by just getting your general reaction, thought, response to that ad.
Well, my biggest concern with it is it's another way of dividing, not only the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, it's dividing races. When you look at Rand Paul's stance on racism, there's nothing tells me that he is racist. And when you listen to what Mr. Booker has to say, he makes that as Rand Paul's winning strategy to do so. And by doing the news thing, it tears up communities. In my opinion, it's the worst thing he could have done for a black community. That's just my opinion. And I think that there's people that in both sides, Democrat, Republican, white, black, whatever, they want to get away from that. They're not here to build bridges or build walls. We're here to build bridges. And you're not going to build bridges with throwing a noose around your neck. I mean, look at the guy in Chicago that claimed he was, attacked, and he found out that he was definitely wrong. It cost him a lot, and it should have. Mm-hmm. And this was just outrageous.
Yeah, I found it. I just found it absolutely remarkable that a black man in the 21st century would put a noose around his neck in a campaign and sort of use that as to say, hey, this is why I should be elected and why the incumbent should not be reelected. Are you serious? I mean, what were you trying to bring across? What do you think he was trying to bring across?
I don't know. It didn't work. Let's just put it that way, because the people I've talked to, and I've talked to people from his church, people from the community where he lives, and most of them don't feel that was a necessary thing to do. They think it probably hurt his campaign more than helped it. I know he's done a lot of good things for the community. I won't, there's so many things that he has done to wake people up, but that's not the way to do it. I mean, you That's like backing the hearse up to the door and saying, here's what's going on. You're going to die. Uh, Rand Paul has never been that way, in my opinion, and I've followed him for years. So and matter of fact, I was there when he first campaigned for the first time around, and I think that he had a lot of help from the Black communities at that time. And I think that Mr. Booker basically just trying to take away from anything good he has done.
Right.
And I continually just to go back to historical things that, there was mistakes made in the history of Kentucky and history of the United States, but things are past. And I think if you talk to the majority of Black people that aren't paying attention, now there's some not, same way with anybody else. There are people paying attention, people not. If you're paying attention, they realize that historically the Black people and white people in general have improved their relationships.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think you've got a good point there. Like, one thing I often say to people is that here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, it was Frank Stanley, the editor of the Louisville Defender, who went to the Kentucky legislature and he said, hey, we need a Kentucky Commission on Human Rights. And the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights was the leading force in fighting discrimination in housing all throughout the state. Now, that's something to think about. I mean, the Kentucky legislature at that time was not majority Black, it was majority white, and they jumped on it. They said, yes, we need a Kentucky Commission on Human Rights. They funded it. And and the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights, they were, part of their mandate was, hey, this whole thing about racial discrimination in housing, we want to end it, and we want you guys to end it. So I'm not getting where Mr. Booker's. I'm not getting this whole lynching thing.
Yeah, that's just his way of pointing, making a discriminatory remark without saying it. Right. We don't live that time anymore. I mean, I remember in the 40s, one of a Black man was lynched in Breckinridge County, where I came from. I mean, I wasn't born then, obviously, but I remember my grandparents telling me about it, and it was the most awful thing they'd ever witnessed. And and it brought a lot of attention to the times. The times have changed. We're not there anymore, and we've got people to realize that. Right. A lot of people in the West End, they're great people, and I've met a lot of them. And I tell you what, I'm not afraid to go into the West End. I'm not afraid to walk up to anybody and say hello. I'm what can I do, or how can I help you? Or the same way with me, if they ask me if they can help me, I'm going to ask them. Right. Skin color is irrelevant at this point in most lives, I think.
Let's take this conversation real quickly to the national level. When President Biden let me just put it this way. On a national level, if you were to listen to some of President Biden's speeches, he doesn't seem to share your optimism or your positive views about race relations in the United States, on a national level, whole. Do you agree or disagree with that, or what are some of your comments? What's some of your thoughts?
Well, I agree. He doesn't. I mean, because his agenda is to keep us divided as much as he can, because it helps the Democrat Party. Same way with immigration. We don't stand same way toe to toe on integration, because he knows that he can get more votes that way. And now I'm all for coming up with a plan where if somebody comes into the United States, they've got a plan they got to work out to become a citizen, by all means. But and I think Mr. Booker's that way too. But to openly say we're going to let everybody in and then you can start voting tomorrow, I think that's just, well, it's not doesn't set good precedents for anything. And I think the fact is the Democrat Party's going to do whatever it can to stay in power. And that's one way they're going to do it. They keep us divided. People seem to forget that the Republican Party has been the one that's tried to help minorities more than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats and the left always going to make it seem like, well, we're the ones that are taking your money and not helping you any.
Right.
But if I'm sure there's some organizations that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and if they're not, they need to be shut down. But whether it's Democrat, Republican, either one. But
Right.
we need to step down. We need to sit down with people in the communities, and that's kind of what Constitution Kentucky does with different groups. We want to sit down and talk to you. We have a town hall meeting. We want to know what's going on in your area. What issues can we help work with? We can't solve all the problems, but we may give you some insight to what you can do in your community.
Mm-hmm.
And we bring in people from the community, their leaders, and we want them to discuss open discussion.
Right.
If we don't have that, truthfully, we'll get very far. We'll get very far.
Folks, we're talking to Tony Wheatley. He's the founder of Constitutional Kentucky. He's not speaking at this time as a spokesperson for Constitutional Kentucky. He's just giving his personal views on some important issues we have here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky and in the country as a whole. Brother, I just got one or two more questions for you, but before we go to those questions, how can people get a hold of Constitutional Kentucky? What do you have, a website, Facebook page, what?
Well, we have a website and a Facebook page. Our Facebook page is simple because they shut us down the first time. It's just cky.facebook.com or /facebook.com. Our website is constitutionalkentucky.com, and that's Kentucky spelled out. We have office phone number, which there's somebody that gets forwarded to somebody at all times. Mm-hmm. And we're happy to come into your community, talk to you. I'll come to your community anytime, or any community in the state. We've got a couple things planned, and over the next few days, we're looking at having something November 12th for Veterans Day, and that'll be a thing with Turning Point USA. Mm-hmm. So we'll hopefully that'll turn out pretty good. But our goal is to get this educated kids out there on what the Constitution is all about. And we've had, like I say, most communities are really open to what's going on, and they realize that our current administration, especially our national, is stepping all over it. And we just open up their eyes and say, "Hey, enough's enough."
Right. I'd like to get your comment on this. Someone said to me, if you don't know what rights you have, you don't have that right. You've lost it.
That's exactly right.
And that's go ahead.
That's why they stopped doing it. They basically stopped teaching it. I've had an argument with teachers over who just have never read the Constitution, but yet they want to tell students that, came home the other day, and this shocked me because somebody told her that as a little girl, she got punched by a kid in school. And I said, well, did you punch him back or what happened? She said, well, Dad, I was told I'm a white girl and I can't punch a black boy. Mm. That. I said, it doesn't matter what the color of skin is. If you want to defend yourself, you defend yourself. Right. I mean, it was a minor thing. It wasn't really big, but for somebody to tell her that, and she said it was a teacher. So I don't know, but that heartens me because this kind of stuff does not need to happen. Right. And we can't go back and with the CRT programs and all that and say, well, it was my fault that things happened 100 years ago any more than it was something that happened 10 minutes ago. Right. But we just need to push all that aside, reach out with our hands and shake hands and say, hey, let's talk about the real issues. What is our problem? Right. Why can't we work together? And that's just common with anybody. I mean, it doesn't matter the color of your skin. If you can't communicate, you've already failed. Right.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more, brother. Brother, again, appreciate your time. Always love having you on. You're always educating us. You're always out there raising people's consciousness. And man, I think it's just so important for you to do that one thing. Make sure that people are made aware of the Kentucky Constitution. You even give out free copies of the Kentucky Constitution.
We actually sent some to a prison the other day.
Wow.
Prisoners ask for it, we send it. We believe it's important that no matter where you are, you still have some rights.
Yes.
Even if you're locked up, you still have some civil rights, and we want to make sure they're not broken. So
right.
that doesn't require anything but a few dollars to send something out, and their time to read it. But they have to be willing to read it. So that's our goal, is to get it out there. So.
And that website again is constitutionalkentucky.com or .org?
.com.
.com. And Kentucky spelled out.
Yep.
All right, brother, thank you so much for your time. Hope we can do this again real soon.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. Take care.